But Ivan saw this painting by Glenn Wilcox, who's done a great deal of painting on St. John, is now relocated in Oregon, I believe. John saw this on exhibit in Mongoose Junction, 10 or 15 years ago. And he looked at it. There were other pictures. He said, I want that. And I said, okay, we'll see about getting it. He said, go buy it. I said, no, I will talk to the painter. I have to admit, I wanted to get it cheaper. I succeeded. He wanted it. You recognize these are mangroves. These are mangroves actually on St. John, and they're very important to the ecology of St. John. And in Ivan's life, in that period of time before we were actually able legally to be married in Florida, he was living on a small island where the late Mary Roberts Reinhardt, mystery writer, had lived, a small little, resort, and he was allowed in return for his services, 8 hours a day, as, clean up. He washed things with the raccoons and all of that. He was allowed to go fishing, which was the great love of his life, even in Russia. Fishing, catching fish. And on St. John, of course, that was. Okay, he was out in his little fishing boat, and one of those sudden squalls came up. You didn't have storm warning, certainly no radio. So the boat was swamped with water, just gushing downpours. And you couldn't see where you were going, and the wind was banging you. And he banged against the roots. This is by this time 3 hours after the storm had started. Couldn't see anything, but he felt and grasped the root of the mangrove in the night with his left hand. And with his right hand, using a calabash or a goby, we have several here, he bailed out the water continually so the boat wouldn't sink, and he held on so that he wouldn't be blown out to heaven knows where. And it was pretty tiring, but he survived, and by the dawn's early light, he was able to paddle back to the little key where he was working, and they thought he was dead. They were so relieved, and of course he was pretty happy to be back again. And he wanted that because that picture for him were the trees that saved his life, because he could grasp them. And when I did the first book of stories about Ivan for my great nieces, that story about how the mangrove roots saved your Uncle Ivan's life. And there are 23 stories in there, and a lot of serious information, but in a light key. By the way, here's a picture of that, talking about fishing. This was that big pompano that I told you about we caught in Cruz Bay way back in the late 50s. And the only doctor on the island at the time took this picture. And that's the one that we fed. I made gefilte fish, and we fed over 40 friends, all we could eat. So mangroves and fishes and shells, they all have stories to tell. And depending on what you like to look at, we can always tell it for whatever age, adventurer, exhausted tourist, whoever. We make it up as we go along.